Gaboon vipers really do make an amazing first pet reptile, but why? You don't really expect to hear the word Gaboon viper and first pet reptile all in the same sentence. For those who don't know what a Gaboon viper is, it's a highly venomous snake that's from Africa, and it's my dream species. I will never have one because of the safety factors behind it, but they're an absolute fascinating species. You don't expect to hear them in the first sentence together, and that's because the connotation behind first pet reptile is insinuating that, yes, it is going to be your first pet reptile. You see all these videos saying, the best beginner reptile. Why do you want a beginner reptile? Why do you know what I mean? You're insinuating you're going to have a lot more. And yes, I'm not one for talking. The reptile hobby is addictive. My friend has got a Gaboon viper. It's the only snake that he's got. It's the only snake he's ever had. It was his first pet reptile, and people are looking down on him for it. And he's had this snake for a long time now. But why do people want to push you to go for like a corn snake or a royal python as a first pet reptile when that's not what you want? Let me explain. There's a sentimental value behind this. See, now my friend, we're going to call him Tom. He's not in the reptile hobby, so to speak, like some of us all are. I mean, he's not on any Facebook groups. He doesn't advertise the fact that he's a reptile enthusiast. He doesn't even call himself a reptile enthusiast because he's not. He doesn't like all the little bits that go along with it and stuff. He does his research on the specific species because that's a specific species that he's got. That's a specific species that he loves. He has got served time in Africa where the Gaboon viper actually comes from. But there's a story behind why is that his first pet reptile. You see all these videos out there saying the best beginner reptile. There's no such thing as a beginner reptile. Yes, there are slightly easier to care for reptiles, and there are a lot more master sort of species. There's a few people out there that have done videos based on them, but insinuating the best first pet reptile or the best beginner reptile is insinuating that you're going to progress through the hobby and collect more animals and stuff like that, and that's not the case with this one. Like I say, Tom, my friend, hasn't got any more reptiles. He's got one Gaboon snake. He went to a specific reptile sanctuary, so to speak, and said, look, I've spent some time in Africa serving with the military. You might see all this, it's sunburn from a Snowden adventure. I spent some time in Africa serving with the military. I got abandoned out there with my platoon for 3 years. Basically, it wasn't just they got abandoned and that was it. They actually spent 3 years there because they all didn't want to really come home. They had nothing to come home for, so they just stayed out there and served. Apparently that was allowed back then, and we're talking years and years ago. But once he retired from the military services, he come back and he missed this snake. He used to have a snake that followed them around, the platoon around. They didn't know what species it was or anything like that. They didn't have a clue. They didn't even know if it was venomous. But they had it around, and they used to follow him around every now and then. Every night when they'd just be settling down, there would be this snake. And now they were out on an exercise for 8 weeks. It was a solid exercise for this 8 weeks. And they couldn't get evacuated out of that scenario because the evacuation teams couldn't get in to actually pick them up and take them away. So they were left to fend for themselves, sort of thing. They had to ration everything they had. But they were living off food that they would catch out there. Believe it or not, he said he was even living off savannah monitors. I was like, oh, fair enough. But every now and then they'd chuck the tail off the savannah monitor, and while it was still wriggling, they'd chuck it to this pet snake. They all gave it a name, and it just let it sort of, it was their pet, so to speak. They didn't have it in an enclosure, they didn't carry it around with them. It was just every time they bedded down for the night, this snake would pop. Now, it might have been 3 or 4 different snakes, or it might have been 20 different snakes, but that snake, that species of snake, they thought it was the same exact snake. It could have been. I don't know how much of a wives' tale that actually is, but he was there. And 9 times out of 10, they'd grab the tail off the savannah monitor or whatever they were eating that night, and they'd chuck it for the snake, and he'd grab it and he'd eat it. So the snake was obviously following him around for food. He retired out of the services, he'd come out of the military, he'd come home, and he did kind of miss this snake. Every time you'd ask him about his time in the forces, it always referred to this snake and the adventures that they went on, but it would always come back round to this snake. So he went to a local reptile sanctuary. He missed this snake. The hardest part about coming out of the military for him was this snake. He spent a lot of time over there. Anyway, so he went to the reptile sanctuary and said, I want a Gaboon viper. Now you get the typical, oh no, you can't have one of them. You've got no experience with pet snakes and all this. So you're going to have a corn snake. You're going to have a royal python. Why do we have to do that? He doesn't want them. He wants He wants a Gaboon viper. That's what it was. He'd done his research. He found out what the species was. He wanted a Gaboon viper. So they turned around to him and said, okay, no, we'll go for it. We'll do it. You need to do this, this and this. So he went out, he followed up with all the legislations that he needs to do. He did everything that he needed to do to get a DWA license, a dangerous wild animal license, which is what you need to have venomous animals here in the UK. He'd done all that. He'd done the double glass doors on the enclosures. He'd done the separate room that was double locked, double doored into that actual separate room. And he did it. He got a Gaboon viper as his first pet reptile. He had them coming out to do all the checks. He said one time they come out to do the checkup just to sort of see the room before they'd actually physically give him the license. And they said, oh, you're going to have to rebuild. He built the whole enclosure himself, spent an absolute fortune. It looked immaculate, full background. They'd done everything to replicate what he physically saw in Africa. It was just absolutely beautiful. And they turned around and said, your enclosure needs to be a little bit thicker, mate. The wood needs to be a bit crap. So he went out, he started it all up again, done it all again. He spent about 12 months going through all the process to actually get that pet snake, and he did it. He even went on training courses to learn how to physically use the hooks and how to tube them if they need any vet surgery or any vet work doing, how to get them in the tube. He done how to feed them. He went on loads of different training courses and went to other people that are far more experienced than him to learn how to physically do everything possible for this Gaboon viper. Now you've got to think, the bloke's never had a pet snake in his life, and he's going out to all of these extents just to be able to get a Gaboon viper. And that's what people do when they're passionate about that one specific species. Then he had the trouble of trying to find a pet snake. This was a long, long time ago. The snake that came in was a wild caught specimen. It was a nice specimen. It wasn't a baby. It was a fully grown adult, so nobody knows the true age of this specific animal. Today, right now, today, that animal has been in captivity for 22 years. God knows how old that animal is. It's his only pet reptile. It's his only pet snake. That animal is a pet. It's not a part of a collection. It's not anything like that. Now, if he would have got a corn snake and a bull python and then moved up to a Gaboon viper, what's the point in the corn snake and the raw python? He's got no love for them. Why does he need to do that to those two specific animals when they can go to other people where they could actually live a really happy life? At the minute, I mean, they could be just sat in little boxes until he got the experience up to have a Gaboon viper. I don't think anybody's going to have the experience to actually have a Gaboon viper. But why do we keep pushing the first pet reptile should be a beginner pet reptile? Pushing the fact that you're going to encourage people to have big, wide collections. 22 years that snake's been in captivity. It's massively loved. It's got a massive enclosure. And they are both doing really, really well. So every time I see him, I go around there and he points it out and he said, this is this, this is that. Back in when we were over there, we done this and we done that and we fed it this and we fed it that and we just chucked anything at it. Obviously, times have changed, information's changed, the heating and lighting requirements have all changed. Everything has changed within this animal over that period of time. But it just blew my mind. The thing that got me the most was I was in a reptile shop a couple of months ago and I was talking about this. And somebody had a go at the fact that this man's got a Gaboon viper but he's never had another snake. He should have started off with beginner species. What's your thoughts on this? I'd love to know in the comment section down below. If you're new around here, please make sure you do hit that subscribe button and like this video. Peace out, guys.